Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a shortcut to getting really well informed on something that touches, well, pretty much everyone now, cultural interbreeding. Fascinating topic, sometimes challenging too. You sent over some really powerful sources, including this incredibly insightful interview with an expert, Sinaa Al-Taee. So our mission today is to unpack all that and pull out the key insights for you. We're looking at how cultures interact, how people integrate, and the impact especially on, kids born abroad.
Yeah, and what's really compelling is how these sources keep coming back to dialogue, how essential it is for bridging divides, building respect, tolerance. We'll explore how understanding and accepting different values can genuinely reduce tensions even when things seem tricky at first.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea. What our source calls intellectual, cultural, and social interbreeding, or palako. What did Ms. Altai illuminate for us there?
All right, so from her perspective, as a teacher and researcher, she frames it as a really positive interaction, a natural exchange. Ideas, values, even language. It happens all the time in diverse places like schools with different kinds of students and teachers. The goal is ultimately mutual understanding, acceptance, and the art of listening, really listening, avoiding judgment without actual dialogue.
That art of listening. It raises a good question, doesn't it? How often do we truly practice that?
Exactly. It's something to think about.
So this talakwa, it sounds incredibly positive. What are some of the key benefits Mrs. Altai points out?
Well, she highlights creating dialogue, fostering acceptance of diversity, different faces, colors, cultures, religions. She says it genuinely helps raise awareness in students, helps them embrace differences rather than fear them.
But looking at the bigger picture, it's not always smooth sailing, is it? The sources mention challenges.
No, definitely not. A major concern that comes through is the potential loss of identity. It's this constant internal struggle, especially for immigrants and their kids, balancing integration with preserving their original heritage. And a critical point here is how integration gets misunderstood. People often think it means complete assimilation, like a melting pot.
Right, where everything just blends together.
Exactly. Instead of seeing it as more of a cultural mosaic where distinct identities can coexist, Ms. Altai mentioned this is a very personal struggle for mothers like her.
So given that challenge, this identity preservation thing, the sources seem to point to one fundamental place to start.
They do. It all starts at home. Ms. Altai really stresses this, protecting values, identity, especially for children born abroad. It begins within the family. It's systematic, gradual, often indirect, starting really young.
What are the key elements she mentioned?
Language is huge. Both the language itself and the specific dialect. She sees that as vital for identity. Also, teaching traditions, rituals, religious or cultural, through practice, not just instruction, but living it. It makes you think, what stands out to you as maybe the most crucial element there?
Well, she really puts the responsibility on parents, doesn't she? Describes it as this ongoing effort, continuous guidance, even if it feels like some things are fading a bit. The family, she says, is the basic pillar. You have to keep reinforcing it. And in today's world, we can't ignore media, social media. That adds another layer. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. This whole idea of digital globalization, it's a classic double-edged sword. The sources show it can reinforce cultural images, or it can distort them. And the critical insight from Mrs. Altai here is the need for constant parental guidance, continuous monitoring, conscious direction, and really maintaining that open dialogue within the family. She says that removes fear, lets parents understand what kids are actually consuming online.
She shared that really powerful personal story, didn't she, about her son asking if something online was true. Her advice was basically, not everything online is true, come ask me. That approach, tailored to the child's age.
Yeah, it aims to instill those core traditions, religion, positive folklore. It's proactive, not just reactive.
Yeah, it's easy to think of all this cultural mixing as, a modern thing, but the sources show it goes way back.
Way back. That's a key point Ms. Altai makes. Cultural interbreeding isn't new at all. She points to historical interactions like occupations or colonization, which, despite the negative aspects, actually spurred intellectual exchange. Think about arts, literature growing through translation, student exchanges. History shows that differences, if bridged effectively, can be really fertile ground.
For creativity, innovation.
Exactly, leading to mutual benefit.
She gave that great example comparing Arab collective living with Western individuality.
Right, and she sees an opportunity there. Not either, but combining them. Preserve identity, but develop new concepts too. Create a conscious society that fosters real innovation, kind of the best of both worlds.
So thinking practically, How do we actively promote this positive dialogue? Mrs. Al-Taee offered some ideas from her teaching experience.
Yeah, she really emphasized the teacher's personality, how crucial it is for students to accept them, see them as role models. And if the standard curriculum isn't quite cutting it for integration, she suggests innovating.
Like what?
Maybe complementary activities. Reading circles, perhaps, focusing on books about identity drawn from real life, not just theory, make it relatable.
She mentioned a specific book, didn't she? Fada al-Hawaya.
Chaos of Identities, yes,
Yeah.
by Dr. Hara al-Nadawi. She sees it as a practical guide for new generations on preserving identity, navigating that belonging versus alienation struggle, and also just creating chances for discussion, bringing people from different backgrounds together to talk.
Her main message seemed to be make education indirect, engaging. Spark curiosity, don't force it.
Precisely.
Now, the sources also touch on, unfortunately, current global tensions, how they impact coexistence.
Yeah. That raises the question, how does cultural interbreeding help with peaceful coexistence when things are challenging? Mrs. Al-Taee's core belief here is humanity first. If we prioritize our shared humanity, she thinks we could overcome fanaticism, internal conflicts. She acknowledges that recent media portrayals, current conflicts, have created negative views of Arabs and Islam. Even if it's just among a small group, it causes real suffering.
And her advice to parents facing that seemed quite powerful.
Very. Teach kids that negativity is temporary. Don't get provoked. Engage in discussion. Integrate respectfully. The goal is acceptance, diversity, embodying that idea that difference doesn't spoil friendship.
Which she admits is hard in practice.
Oh, absolutely. She says it starts from the roots, requires constant effort, maintain your identity, your morals, but be a positive example.
Okay, this leads to another really interesting point from the sources, the school choice dilemma. Why do many Arab families opt for Arab-specific schools in the West?
It's a significant issue. Mrs. Al-Taee explains the main fear is losing the child's religion, traditions, their environment, or maybe having them rebel against the family. Often, she says, it stems from maybe not fully understanding integration, fearing it means total assimilation, especially fear for daughters.
But there's a downside to those specific schools.
She argues there can be. They often don't prepare students adequately for non-Arab universities later on. Language barriers, curriculum differences can become real hurdles. It's a tough dilemma, isn't it? What stands out to you about that choice parents face?
Well, her personal experience was striking. She taught in Arab schools but sent her own kids to Romanian schools.
Right.
Her strategy: diligently maintain Arabic language and dialect at home. And she says it worked.
Yeah, her kids are integrated, kept their identity, and apparently even pass on positive aspects of Arab culture to others, like that taxi driver's story.
She really hammers home that maintaining the language at home is the bedrock, the essential foundation.
It seems to be the key element for her.
Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into some cultural nuances. The source explores how Easterners and Westerners perceive themselves and each other. How is understanding the Eastern self described?
It's framed as a difficult journey, actually, requiring deep self-reflection, living with that internal conflict between your upbringing and your current surroundings. She notes that travel, exposure to other cultures often deepens that self-awareness.
What helps in that journey?
Key things she mentions for Arabs. Awareness, reading widely, being open to other opinions, developing a personal philosophy, finding inner peace by really defining who you are. She also touches on that collective identity aspect in many Arab societies, al-Lama, the gathering. It's a different emphasis than Western individualism.
And then the flip side, how the West perceives the East, or specifically Arab culture. What's the observation there?
Ms. Al-Taee points out that, well, some Westerners have quite limited, sometimes even distorted knowledge, often seeing Arabs as just one single group, a single block.
Without recognizing the huge diversity.
Exactly. She sees it as kind of our role. People from that culture to present the positive aspects transparently, educate people about the richness, the variety, maybe even through translating relevant books. She finds joy, she says, when people recognize her heritage and ask questions. It creates an opening to share, to counter stereotypes.
Now, her master's research sounds fascinating. Islamic space, societies, cultures, mindsets. What did that involve?
Yeah, that really seems to have ignited her passion for this kind of bridge building. She talked about meeting non-Arab researchers who studied Islam and Arab cultures mainly through text, without much direct experience. Her being there as an Arab Muslim created this practical cultural exchange. Just by them asking her questions, getting her perspective, it bridged that gap between theory and lived reality.
And she looked at a historical impact too, right? Like the Ottoman influence in Romania.
Yes, She mentioned cities still having Ottoman names, Amidi, Majidye, ancient mosques like Mabada Mosque. And the influence wasn't just religious, it extended to clothing, ideas, food, even morals, fostering strong family ties in those areas. A real lasting legacy.
That's incredible.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, she also highlighted the Arab legacy elsewhere. Andalusia in Spain, even Portugal, where Arabic words like inshallah are apparently still used in the local language, even if people don't know the origin anymore.
Wow.
She feels this deep pride, but also a responsibility to share that rich history, push back against negative stereotypes. And she notes the West is now, increasingly, wanting to learn Arabic, study Eastern cultures, sees it as a shift.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, a really provocative question emerges from the sources. If Arab civilization was historically so influential, so innovative, why does it sometimes seem like it's now primarily receiving cultural influence from the West?
That's a big, important question Ms. Al-Taee tackles. Her thought is, well, perhaps while the West studied and then built upon Arab civilization, Arabs themselves became maybe too focused on just being proud of the heritage, without adequately developing it further for today's world. She calls for moving beyond what she calls superficial pride towards proactive development.
So a need to sort of go against the current, as she put it, but in a positive way.
Exactly. To explore, discover, make sure the West benefits from Arab culture, while Arabs also benefit from the West, mutual exchange. The challenge, she notes, is that maybe many got caught up in the surface level while the core weakened, especially younger generations.
It sounds like a real call to action.
It absolutely is. Her ultimate message is about fostering a conscious generation. Proud of its heritage, yes, but also developing itself, acting as a positive role model. She stresses practical application, not just talk, and the idea that every individual carries that responsibility, being an example of a beautiful culture, civilization, language, and she sees that growing Western curiosity about Arabic and the East as a major opportunity right now.
Wow. What a fascinating deep dive. We've covered so much ground: cultural interbreeding, identity, dialogue, from personal struggles with heritage to the deep historical roots, the role of education, individual responsibility.
Yeah, it really reinforces that core message from Ms. Al-Taee, doesn't it? That cultural differences don't have to mean conflict. They can actually be a source of creativity, mutual growth, but it relies on acceptance and that art of listening we talked about.
So, thinking about everything we've discussed, what really stands out to you, the listener? Perhaps it's Miss Altae's final powerful thought. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Engage with others. Be curious. Be positive. Know that you, just by being yourself and sharing your own culture respectfully, you're acting as a bridge. A powerful one. Until next time, keep diving deep into the knowledge that shapes our world.